Welcome back to the FIT40 Podcast, where we simplify exercise and nutrition for busy parents 40 plus so they can improve their health and feel amazing. I'm your host, Brian Fitzsimmons, certified personal trainer and nutrition coach for people over 40 since 2015. And today we have an awesome topic. It's actually going to be one of three parts. It's going to be all about my take as a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach on the documentary that just dropped, Fit for TV, the reality of the biggest loser, available on Netflix. So I'm going to give my 2 cents on things that were done and what I probably would have done differently as a trainer and a coach, and what you can do going forward to take lessons and learn from this whole experience that they went through to apply to your own journey and get amazing results and not have to go through all the negatives that came with it. But before we go into all that, take a second. If you haven't already, wherever you're watching or listening, go ahead and hit follow or subscribe. That way you don't miss another episode. And it is also an awesome way to support this podcast, which I appreciate greatly. Love you so much if you choose to do that. All right, now let's dive in. So with this documentary, I saw it on Netflix like a week or two before, and I'm like, oh, okay. So if Netflix is going to be doing a deep dive on this, like few episodes, there's probably going to be some stuff I haven't seen before. So I was kind of excited for this to come on, and I was looking forward to it. So me and my fiance decided to watch because we both grew up like as kids with The Biggest Loser on TV. Like I remember watching with my mom on the couch, watching these shows and like being fully invested and honestly thinking, oh, this is how you need to lose weight. And as I've learned over the years, obviously that's not the case, but like I was a fan of the show at some point. So I'm sitting down and I know what's happened throughout the years and all that stuff. And I've kind of followed along. So I knew the general direction, but I'm like, let's just give it a watch. And as I'm watching, I'm getting more pissed. I'm getting more angry and more passionate. And I'm like talking to my fiance, being like, this is such BS. This should have known this and all this stuff. So I just start taking notes, and I'm like, after all these notes, I'm like, yeah, I got to do a podcast on this. So apologies ahead of time if I do get pissed, or not if, but when I do. And it's because I get passionate about this stuff, because at the end of the day, if you are on a weight loss journey and you decide to hire help in the form of a trainer or a nutritionist and go to see your doctor and all that stuff, and you want to do right by yourself and do this the right way, you deserve to get the best information possible and somebody who genuinely cares about you. And that did not happen a lot of the times in this show. So let's talk about it. Okay. Episode 1, it starts with introducing everybody. So we got the producers, and honestly, first look at the producers. They're both in really good shape, and they show some clips of them in the past, like on the show. They were in shape during the show too. So it's like you can safely assume they probably have never really struggled with weight anywhere near what these contestants have struggled with. And they picked people that were, or I'm not going to go into that just yet. We're going to talk about the contestants, but they really had these things that stood out to me, these things that they said, these things that they did that just made it seem like they were extremely ignorant to exactly what they were doing. And that's not me attacking their character saying they're ignorant. No, they just did not know. Like, for example, one of them said, oh, I'm scared. I was scared in the initial pilot because I thought NBC was going to walk in, the executive or the studio heads, and they're going to see this guy stand on the scale and there will be zero weight loss on the scale. Whereas anybody with half a brain who knows anything about nutrition and fitness knows that, hey, if you starve yourself and if you run yourself into the ground with exercise, you lose weight. Okay. It's not oh my God, I don't know if this is going to happen. It happens. Okay. And that's assuming that you actually do starve yourself. You don't have the compensatory eating that comes with extreme exercise, which a lot of people unfortunately do experience. But if you were controlling your calories and eating under 1,000, which a lot of them did, and you run yourself into the ground for hours and hours a day, it's a guarantee, pretty much. Okay. And then a few other things I didn't write down, but it's just, you got this vibe that they were in over their head as far as like they didn't know what they were doing from a health standpoint, from a doing right by the client standpoint, but they were doing right by the studio. They were creating a compelling show that a lot of people wanted to watch. And these competing interests are the reason that a lot of these things happened that put people in harm's way, that messed them up to the point where now they still struggle and the show didn't leave them any better. They actually might have left them worse off. Okay. Now the trainers. Okay. I will admit, I liked Bob. Okay. Recently came back to liking Bob because I saw him on Traders and I thought he was an interesting character. He was funny, whatever. But after this documentary, I'm like, yeah, I'm back to hating him because he says he stands on everything that he did. And I can't understand that for the life of me, because when it came to both of them, not just Bob and Jillian, but both of them were very shame-based motivators. And we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that shame does not work for long-term health. It does not work for long-term habit change. And all it does is make the person saying these things feel better. Like, I bet you Bob and Jillian felt really good and so much better than the people they were yelling at. And then it creates this sense of dependency from the contestants saying, I need to please Bob. I need to please Jillian. Oh, I don't want to get yelled at by them. I need to avoid this punishment, rather than seeing all the benefits that come with exercise. Okay. And like Bob even said, he's like, I think that they all genuinely got healthier. And as you see in episode 3, that's not exactly the case. And upon looking into it, like, because of this clear zero nutritional knowledge and all these extreme short-term methods, I'm like, wait, let's take a second and look, like, are they even qualified to do this job? Because Bob said at the very beginning, he's like, I was working with Hollywood actors and actresses and models, and they were trying to lose that last 5 to 10 pounds, getting ready for the screen, getting ready for the cover of magazines. He'd never worked with people who are classified as obese, who have that much excess body fat and all the health complications that come with it. So just from an experience standpoint with that specific population, none. Big red flag. Okay. And when it came to his actual qualifications, the only one I could actually find is that he was qualified as a fitness instructor, not as a personal trainer, not as a nutritionist, not as a nutrition coach, not as anything, literally anything else that would have been like, hey, this guy actually seems like he gives a shit and wants to learn a lot. No, he was a fitness instructor. And basically, the difference between a fitness instructor and a personal trainer is that when somebody's a fitness instructor, they learn whatever the class is that they're teaching. And they might learn some things to keep people safe and how to motivate based on whatever certification that it is for that fitness class. But at the end of the day, you're learning Zumba or Pilates or cycling or whatever that class is. You're just learning how to run that class for the most part. You're not learning all these in-depth concepts that you need to know to actually change people in a positive way that lasts longer than just your class. Okay. That kind of explains why they go with these shame-based motivators, because that's kind of like what group classes are like, where you have somebody yelling and motivating you, and they're either a cheerleader or they're a drill instructor, and it feels good in the moment. But so many people that go to these classes, like, they'll see good results in the beginning and then it kind of just plateaus because there's not that next level. There's not that thing that teaches them how to sustain these results and how to keep getting better and better and better. It's just that thing. Okay. And this is very apparent too, that he just did not have the communication skills and the empathy and the mental health, coaching skills when you see him lose his shit. You see him yell at Joelle and say, shut the fuck up and just do it. And that's never okay. That's never something that should ever come out of a trainer's mouth. If somebody's coming to you trying to get help from you, that is not the way to do it, because you need to lead with empathy and empowerment. You don't belittle people, because that just serves you, not them. And he, yeah, like I said, he admits to never working with obese people. I apologize. My notes, there are so many I'm looking at right now. I'm trying to do my best to keep everything straight. Okay. And then when it comes to Jillian, what struck me as odd is the fact that she had a lot of certifications, but based on what I've heard her say in public, like on social media, in the news, and on this TV show, it kind of sounds like she's a padding the stats type of certification person. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times people, like trainers or nutrition coaches, will just pad the stats. They will get all of these certifications and do the bare minimum, pass all the quizzes and stuff and tell them what they want to hear. And then they get the certification and then disregard everything that they learned. They're just like, nope, sounds really good on my resume. I'm going to stick it right here, but I'm not going to use any of that because I view it as dumb because I have all these preconceived notions and biases that I don't want to check. So I'm going to keep those, but I'll keep your certification as well, which kind of speaks to how she's acted over the years. And when it comes to certifications, this is a really good topic to bring up because people don't really know what to look for. You see, certified personal trainer, and you're like, all right, check, that's good. I can tell you right now, as a personal trainer, if you just see a baseline certification, that ain't cutting it. That is not good enough because the baseline certifications for ACE, NASM, ISSA, they teach you basic stuff like simple things that should keep people relatively safe in the gym and allow you to conduct a proper assessment in the beginning and do all the legal stuff. Yes, all these basic things are taken care of. However, in my experience, even with those certifications, I've seen personal trainers with those certs do very concerning things, putting people in very compromising situations because they just didn't know better. They don't know how to take what they see on social media or what they see in their own programs for powerlifting or bodybuilding or CrossFit and say, how do I apply that to somebody that does not have my same goals? Because it's basically this whole thing of, I have these goals, everybody should have these goals, and they are too young and naive and uneducated to understand that. And it took me some time to get to that place too. I'm not sitting here saying, I never went through that. No, I have to thank my lucky stars. I had a guy like Tom Langdon. I had another guy, Matt Carbone, Vince Gabriel, all these people who were incredible and still are incredible personal trainers, business owners who guided me as a young trainer and said, hey, you want to do all these things, you want to powerlift, you want to bodybuild, but at the end of the day, they're not you. And as a young guy, it took me a really long time to figure that out. But if somebody's doing this on national television with millions and millions of people watching them, and they are in charge of people who are in a very vulnerable population, they should be the best of the best. They shouldn't be these people with baseline certs or these certs that don't really hold a lot of water or that they don't practice because they think that they know better. It should be high-level coaches, but that doesn't make for great TV, now does it? So if you're looking for good certifications, at the top of the top, one of the certs that I got when I was at the gym that I was previously at with all those people I just mentioned, that when I was there, I got what was called a CSCS. That is a Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. That is the top of the top when it comes to training, when it comes to like basically anybody who is working in the NCAA, NFL, NHL, all these big organizations, usually a CSCS is the bare minimum to be in the strength and conditioning team. And that is honestly like almost a little bit beyond what a personal trainer in a commercial gym would need, but you're better going a little bit too far than not going far enough when it comes to education. Another thing too is certified strength and functional coach. I'm butchering this, but it's the one with Mike Boyle. It's CFSC. And I think the one that Joe DeFranco has the same certification name. And those two are incredible. So Michael Boyle and Joe DeFranco, both their certifications, I believe they're CFSC, also really good. And the only entry level certification I've seen that actually holds a lot of water and produces really top tier personal trainers is Show Up Fitness. And it seems like they're mostly on the West Coast of the US because it's a growing company, but Show Up Fitness is an incredible certification to look for. Another really good one is like a next level one, which is called Prescript. And that's run by Jordan Shallow. He is a chiropractor who is also a strength and conditioning coach. And he's not one of those chiros that tries to call himself doctor and trick people into thinking he's some sort of healthcare worker. No, he's just very well versed in how the body moves and the anatomy side of things and how people should stay out of pain and amplify their results. So that is an awesome one. And also PPSC, Pain-Free Performance Specialist. That's through John Russin. And that's one I also have, which is also really awesome. Just a couple of good ones to look for. But at the end of the day, if you can find somebody who, number one, passes the beard test, are they genuinely a nice person that you actually enjoy spending time with, that's top tier, because even if they're not the most educated person in the world, if they genuinely care about you, if they show empathy, unlike these trainers, if you would consider them a friend after a certain amount of time, yeah, that's a top thing to look for. Big, big green flag. And you also want to see that they are usually have like a book in their hands or some sort of thing that they're learning lately they're always talking to you about. That's also a really good sign. Or if they're asking, hey, I have this certification I'm working on, can I work on this with you and see how it works in practice? That's another really good thing to look for. So just some ideas if you're searching for a personal trainer. Another thing is, if you look into their social media, have they even gone to any conferences? Because talk about a good separator between people who really give a shit about this profession and those that do not. A lot of the top coaches go to conferences every year to further their education. I haven't gone a year without hitting a conference, and I don't even know how long, because the information's always changing. It's always great to meet others and bounce ideas off each other. And honestly, some of those conferences have been the best for my professional development, more so than some of the certifications I've got, just because having smart friends helps a lot. And when you bounce those ideas off each other, you come to some great ideas. And then the last thing I had here on Jillian is this sentence that I think sums it up pretty well. The season 1 winner said that they had a big old hug and they were embracing each other. And out of all the things she could have said, the first thing that came out of her mouth is, Ryan, you just made me a millionaire. So if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about her as a person, as a trainer, I don't know what will. That it's a very self-serving journey, at least for her, and apparently for Bob too. Now, next person, he wasn't introduced till episode 2, but I figured I'd throw him in here too, since we're going through everybody, is Dr. Robert Huizenga. I'll just call him Dr. H, because I don't want to keep butchering that over and over again. He was the team doctor for the LA Raiders, and he also was a doctor for Charlie Sheen, and basically became a celebrity doctor. And to his credit, he said, he's like, yeah, clearly the Raiders were not looking for the most qualified, like top tier doctor. They just wanted somebody who understood, who got the environment that they were in, which honestly does play a role. But, and I mean, he acknowledged that. So props to him, because he genuinely was like the only person that it kind of seemed like he gave a shit about these contestants. He wanted them to genuinely do well and put their health at the forefront, whereas the producers, then the trainers, really dropped the ball when it came to that. And then last but not least are the contestants. And rather than going through them one by one, just let's talk about them as in general. When it came to the people they were trying to find, they literally said, we're not looking for people who are overweight and happy. We're looking for the people who are overweight and very unhappy. So they're looking for a population that is vulnerable, that is desperate, that is willing to literally do anything, because they have gone through all these struggles throughout their life with this extra weight, and will literally put themselves in life-threatening situations to get there. There was one who stood out, Joelle. Her and Bob had a lot going on, and we're going to dive into that a little bit more. But she definitely had some limiting beliefs, but still ended up losing 80 pounds, even though they treated her like she was like, I guess the best way to put it was they treated her like she wasn't even trying, but lost 80 pounds for not even trying. Okay. A lot of them really had some messed up beliefs when it came to weight loss and language, like making fun of themselves on the audition tapes, or their family members. Like one guy treating his wife like she was an animal in the Amazon, like trying to make a joke about it while she was eating out of a cereal box or something. And it gave America a really good look into the mental struggles that people who are in this situation, things they deal with. Like stuff that you honestly wouldn't even think about if you've never been in that situation before. And with all this going on, with the anxiety building up, a lot of them were like binging before they got there and doing these extreme measures. And they really had these unrealistic expectations when it came to what that weight loss was going to achieve, which a lot of people do. People think, when I lose the weight, this is going to happen. Like one woman said, when she lost all the weight, she thought it would fix her marriage, fix her family, but that's just not what happens. It just results in you being a little bit smaller. It results in you possibly having having better blood work and being able to do more things like when it comes to physically doing stuff. But when it comes to the real stuff like relationships and other things in that realm, it just doesn't do that. Self-confidence, it can help, but at the end of the day, a lot of people go at this journey and say, "Oh, I suck. I suck. I suck" every single day, and they expect to build confidence, and when they don't, they're like, "Oh, I thought I would, like, by hating myself to this weight, it would build confidence." But that makes zero sense. How can you belittle yourself and put yourself down day after day after day and come out of it thinking, "Yeah, I feel really good about myself now"? No, that's not how that works. It needs to be empowering. It needs to be encouraging. And I will say that over and over and over again during this series. All right. So one of the notes I had after the intros was that, quite frankly, a lot of people gained all the weight back. And when they gave the specifics on exactly what was expected of them, it makes total sense. When they were eating, they were aiming for less than 1,000 calories a day. And just to put that in perspective, 1,000 calories a day isn't even enough to fuel a toddler. So you are essentially starving people. And they said that they needed to burn at least 6,000 calories a day. And just so you know, that's freaking impossible. You cannot burn 6,000 calories in a day unless you are like from just exercise. I should say that from just exercise. And even then, even including other factors, it's still borderline impossible because your body will compensate and will slow you down. And there's ways that kind of hold you back from doing that. And on top of that, there's no way to accurately measure that. So they were probably going off of treadmill calories, which are so inaccurate. So inaccurate. I'll just cut myself off there. We put a lot of value in these treadmills or in these machines or in these watches, these trackers, these straps. None of them can accurately estimate how many calories you are burning based on things like when they do double blind water studies, which is like the laboratory way of doing it. And there's a way of testing, and I'm not sure if this is the same one. Again, I'm a personal trainer, not a researcher, but when you actually want to get the amount of calories that you're burning through exercise, they need to lock you in a room that is sealed airtight so that way they can account for how much moisture has increased or decreased in the air. They hook you up to a machine to see how your breathing is and what's coming out, what's going in. And there's so many other factors that need to be measured just to get an accurate amount of calories that you're burning. That's why tracking your calories burned is one of the dumbest things that most people can do. And it's just an exercise in futility. You're better off just taking into account, hey, am I doing about the same activity every single day? Am I getting my workouts every day? Am I getting about the same amount of steps? Am I eating about the same amount of foods? If that consistency is there, you can estimate that what you're going to see is going to be reliable week after week after week. So track what you're eating and stay consistent with activity and just consider that box checked off, because all the stress and anxiety that goes with trying to manage every little factor does more harm than good at the end of the day. And next is they yelled at contestants for motivation. Like I was saying before, short-term results are driven by avoiding punishment or shame. If you are constantly saying, I just don't want to get yelled at, or I'm going to beat myself to make up for all of these things I've done in the past, so I'm going to use exercise to punish myself, okay, that's never, ever going to last because we're human. Let's think of it this way. If you had to force yourself to eat the worst food in the world every single day, or you could eat a bunch of cookies every single day, which one are you going to pick? 9 out of 10 people are going to pick the cookies. Even though you know that other one may be better for your health, more people are going to pick the really tasty thing. Now, if we're talking exercise, if it is miserable, if it leaves you feeling like crap, if you feel like you are worthless, if you feel like you didn't do a good enough job day after day after day after day, you're not going to show up for that long term. But if it's positive, if it's progressive, if you're building, if you're experiencing all these wins and it's this awesome experience for you to keep showing up for, you're going to keep showing up. It's going to feel like a cookie, even though it's like a healthy version of that. You're going to show up and be like, okay, I want to put more weight on the bar. I want to run a little bit further. I want to do all these things because I know I'm getting fitter. I'm getting stronger. I'm doing all these things that are so good for my health, and it feels good doing it. That's the stuff that helps. Okay. And to go back to the shame-based stuff for a second, just know that like long-term, when it comes to avoiding punishment and shame, there's higher dropout rates. It's strongly linked to anxiety, depression, disordered eating or full-blown eating disorders, substance misuse, and self-sabotaging behaviors like shame makes people hide, procrastinate, and double down on the very behaviors that they wanted to change. Maybe you've experienced that yourself. Like when you feel really bad about what you ate over the weekend and you say, all right, diet starts Monday, I'm going to do it. And then you do it from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then you have one thing that was off plan and you feel so much shame for that one food that you're like, I'm not cut out for this. And then you go right back to what you were doing. And then you start binge eating. You start eating all these foods that you don't actually want, or that you say, or that you're using to hide those or mask those feelings that you're feeling. And it just turns into this vicious cycle that leaves you worse off. So do not use shame. Please, please, if we get anything from this one episode, just don't use shame. Make it positive and make it empowering. See, told you, I'd say it again. Okay. Use self-compassion. Do it out of self-love. Say, I want to make myself better. I deserve to feel better. I deserve to be healthy. So I'm going to do these things that line up with that. And really connect with your values, connect with your deeper goals of why you're doing it. That can help so much, because a lot of people are just stuck at the surface level and they're like, I want to lose 20 pounds. And it never goes deeper than that. But when you actually go deeper, you find out why you want that. And that's why I do this with every client. The first kickoff call that we have, we talk about your why. And it could be a number of different things, but I'll tell you, for a lot of people, it's like, well, I want to lose 20 or 40 or 60 pounds. And I'm like, cool, that's a great goal. Why? And they're like, well, I want to feel less joint pain because I want to be able to move more. And I'm like, awesome. Why? And they're like, well, I want to move more because I want to be able to run around with my kids and do all these things on vacation that I'm currently sitting out for. And I feel like I'm missing out on their lives and on my life. And it's like, there we go. That's the why. You're doing this for the memories. You're doing this to create these experiences with yourself and with your kids that are going to make life worth living. Like, you want to live life the way that you want to live it on your own terms. And that's the real why. It's not the 20 pounds. It's the real stuff. So if you can connect to your own, do it. And I'll tell you right now, it's a really simple exercise. You just write down your goal and then you just keep asking yourself, why, kind of like a little toddler who never shuts up and keeps asking you a million questions. Just keep asking yourself why until you can't anymore, because that will allow you to get crystal clear on exactly what you're doing. And along with all that, like I was saying before, focus on progress instead of avoiding failure. If you focus on progress, it's going to build, and it's going to turn into this strong foundation that you have to serve you going forward, rather than just avoiding the punishment and the failure and like saying, oh, I don't want to fail. I don't want to fail. I don't want to fail. And then anytime you do, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy and boom, now you're a failure. Let's cut that crap out. It's all progress from here on out. And then another thing I had that was a note in here, just as a little tidbit, is about how they had no lawyers looking into the contracts that they signed, because they locked them in a hotel room, didn't let them talk to each other for, I guess, a day or two, maybe a few days. And they handed them a contract that was super duper fat, basically, so they can't get sued no matter what the hell happens. So one of the women, I believe it was Tracy, asked if she was able to give it to a lawyer to look over. And they're like, yeah, totally fine. But just know that you will lose your spot because 10 other people are ready to go right now and ready to sign. And when they do that, that gets a little murky when it comes to legally. And when it comes to contract terms, if the contract terms are shockingly unfair and the way it was signed involved manipulative tactics like denying them time to actually look it over, courts can actually strike it down as procedurally unconscionable. So these contracts that they were signing might not have even been legally binding, because that's how like manipulative this whole situation was. And then last but not least, the thing that it ended on was the rhabdo incident. And that was with Tracy, where she got rhabdomyolysis because she pushed herself way too hard on the initial challenge and her body basically shut down. And this was that moment where I'm like, I think they were talking to the producers and even some of the contestants, and people are like, I was just so shocked. I couldn't believe that this was happening. And I'm just sitting there like, anybody with half a freaking brain would know that this could potentially happen. You have all of these people who are very deconditioned and encouraged to be more deconditioned when they come in. So they have no prep phase for this extreme activity that they're doing. Like, I believe they were running a mile, and I know some people are like, oh, it's only a mile. Okay, try running a mile with an extra 2, maybe even 300-400 pounds on your back. Go ahead and see how that feels. Okay. Then along with that, they were experiencing binge-like behaviors prior because they were getting encouraged to eat more, so that way that first weigh-in and the whole total number would be a bigger loss. And it was super hot. If conditions are extremely hot, that is one of those things that in those certifications, they do teach this in the baseline ones. And just in any, I believe they teach it in CPR courses as well, and all these different things for anybody who's involved with people who are going to be active. Heat is one of those things that you are like, okay, we're on red alert. If it gets too hot and people are doing activity, you need to be on your game. You need to be hydrating them, giving them appropriate rest, possibly finding them shade, or like finding ways to cool them down to regulate body temperature, because if they get too hot, bad things happen. And somebody who has a lot of excess body fat gets way hotter, way faster. So that was also in play. Along with that, they're running like straight. They're not getting breaks. They're not drinking water because they're racing to see who can be on the show. So you're not going to stop to drink water. So that's a hazard right there. And along with that, when her body was shutting down as she was close to the finish line, they were saying, okay, you can still go. You can still continue. I don't know what the frick that medic was doing where they'd said, oh yeah, they're good to go. Like, let them keep going. No, she should have been in that ambulance way freaking faster than that. So this show was a monumental failure on Tracy's part and on all of those contestants' part, because it could have been any one of them that experienced that. They were put in that position where they got rhabdomyolysis and where they could potentially not only mess up their life, but also die. Like, she very well could have died that day. And it's pathetic. And it really should be better for the amount of money that they pumped into this show and the amount of people that they could have hired to put them into safer situations. And it just honestly made me like, I don't like to curse when I do solos that much, but it made me fucking sick to my stomach watching that. Okay. So that being said, that's it for episode 1. I knew I was going to get mad. I held it together until the very end. At least I think I did. So just know there's 2 more of these episodes coming up. But in the meantime, while you're waiting on those, if you haven't already, go ahead and grab your free copy of my Toned in 20 workouts and get on the email list and get awesome tips like this every Tuesday and Friday. And if you want to take it to that next level, I just put the finishing touches on my first 5 program. I'm so happy with how this came out. I came up with a month-long program that teaches you exactly how to lose that first 5 pounds that, you know, those first 5, like you constantly gaining and losing. Well, we're cutting that cycle out. You're going to lose that first 5 and many more after, because you're going to learn the strategies that it takes to do it sustainably, do it the right way, unlike how you saw in The Biggest Loser during the show. You're actually going to learn all the tips and strategies to understand how many calories you should have, how to put your plate together, how to get your mind right when it comes to all these things that we talk about. So if you're interested in that and you want to see more details, go ahead, click the link. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out either on my website or email me. I'm always here for you. All right. So that is that for today. I will see you guys for the next episode where I go into episode 2. But until then, go kick some ass. Bye-bye.